Well, hello, Gerald Duran and Scott Fairchild with you with CanaGlobal. Today we're going to start going through one of 8 stages that we take people through in our entrepreneur boot camps, in our mentorship, anything that has to do with growing a company. And the first stage that we go through is LifePlan. But what I want to do, Scott, is set the stage for we have 5, 6 different segments, groups of different types of people that come to us, all for different reasons, from the person who's just graduating from high school that's trying to figure out career path, what are they going to do, to the CEO who's running a successful company, to somebody who is maybe maybe they're not a big executive. All these people, regardless of where they come from.
And everything in between, yeah.
They're change makers.
Right.
But they're always stuck, and that's what attracts them to Cana. They're coming to us stuck, someplace between their dream and their destiny. They got 1 degree, 2 degree, 3 degree off track, and God's allowed something to hit in their life that stalls them out, and they're reflective. And you're a resident entrepreneur farmer because you came from a farming background. But today, when we were talking about what we were going to cover, we were talking about farming and laying down tracks or whatever you said. What happens? Describe to us when you start out and you're going to do a row if you're just a little bit off.
Well, we talk about it. It's one of the things early on my dad taught me. It's like, okay, our fields are about a half a mile long, so he'd get out there with the tractor and he said, now find something at the other end of the field and stay focused on that. And no matter what, when you're going down the field, you're planting, you're in rows, you're planting the rows. Stay focused on that. Never lose sight of that. You lose sight of that, and you're going to end up going off track, and you're going to end up then making the whole rows crooked, and it just makes the whole field a mess. And
right.
it really affects even to the point of when you have to do harvest.
So this is really a pattern. We talk about pattern recognition. Recognize patterns that people get into, and then what we try to do is expose the pattern, and if there's something negative in there, eradicate it from behavior. And one of the things I want to do as we get forward, I just want to draw something on the whiteboard to kind of set up the framework for what we're talking about.
Because we go through this with people. This is one of the things that one of the first things we do when we sit with somebody in Cana.
So everybody has a dream, some kind of dream inside of them.
Of course.
And certainly entrepreneurs have dreams. On the other side of this dream is a destiny. It's the destiny is where the dreams, the location, it's where the dream's going to take place.
And we have a good time with this. I enjoy sitting with people because a lot of times what they've done is they've lost sight of what that destiny is. They've lost sight of, well, I don't remember what my dream is. I don't remember where my destiny was. And so we have a great time just trying to bring them back to that point again.
How many times ourselves have we gone in and reset the dream of Cana and the destiny?
Right.
So what you were saying is they start out on their journey, and it's easy.
Kind of like I'm farming. Okay, I'm
it's
headed.
Easy to go like this.
Yeah.
And then God comes along, and they're off track, and He allows them to get stuck to recalibrate them.
Right.
And we talk about there's 6 stages from dream to destiny, and we really got this from Rick Warren because this is a book and a program, and we've incorporated it into our entrepreneur programs. And it's you have a dream, and then you make decisions to go after it, and then you hit delays, and then there's difficulties, and then there's total dead ends that without a miracle you can't get through it, and then finally destiny. So one of the things when somebody, let's talk about the entrepreneur who's got a company.
Okay.
Maybe they've had this company 10 years. They've had a lot of success. They've reinvested a lot of the profits back into, now they can really take care of their employees. And so they've reinvested it back. They've created a secure environment. Maybe at home, they've bought a better house for their family, and they've paid for a few college educations, and they've really enjoyed some of the rewards. They may have even indulged in a luxury or two. It could be a CEO who has a love for a vintage car, and they went out and splurged and got it, and so they've enjoyed a season of success and the rewards of success.
Okay.
And then something happens, almost always with their revenue, and it goes flat. And what they didn't realize is that they've gotten off track somewhere along the road.
Well, just kind of like what you pointed out over here. They've lost sight of where they were going.
And so two things.
And they got comfortable.
They've gotten comfortable. Yeah. And when you're comfortable, it's easy not to look to the comforter.
Right.
And so it's usually in the valleys when we're going to God. So there's really two, when we talk about miracles in the marketplace, it happens on two fronts. There's a faith miracle, and then there's some kind of business miracle or revelation. Those two things are in play. And we're always talking about connecting the dots between business, purpose, success, and faith. And so one of the first things that we do with anybody, but I'm going to talk about the business person, this entrepreneur, is we take time to reflect. Tell us about your destiny. If we could wave a magic wand, and we don't have one, but if we could, over your situation, and we were to go out 5 years, if anything were possible, what would it look like? What would be important to you? And we break this down. Tell us what it would look like in terms of your business. What would that look like? Your purpose, your calling, your success. What would success look like? And what would your faith look like? And we want them to paint a portrait, a destination in 5 years' time. We could use 7 years, we could use 3 years, but we're just like goals, we're nailing it down to a time. And the reason we go with 5 years is because an awful lot of change could happen in 5 years.
Right. Well, and 5 seems to be a good number for people to grab hold of.
Yeah, it's not 30 years down the road, it's not 10 years, 5 years is really around the corner. And it gives us enough time to get back on track, to make some changes. So you've done this a bunch of times with different people. When people have gone through this exercise with you, what are some of the responses that you see when you've taken people through this exercise?
You know what, Gerald? It's fun to be able to take them through the exercise, because it really does. It gets them back to why did you do this in the first place? Why did you go the direction you did? Or maybe for some of them, it's not even just why did you go this direction. They're recognizing for the first time, wait a minute, there's something new or something else that God's got for me. And so they start moving that direction. It's a blast to see. It's anywhere from people just have great joy on their face to, we've even seen it where people just begin to get tears in their eyes.
Lot of tears.
Just a powerful little program, the way we set this up.
In our Unstuck workshops, we had people articulate 3 successes that they've had on their journey and 3 devastating failures. And then after we did that, we had them go through this, write down your 5-year dream, but man, there was a lot of tears.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen, we did this in Milwaukee, where we were at an event and we had some mayors and some very powerful people show up, and everybody's kind of coming in with their identity and their success, and the person that we had facilitate this, very powerful executive, Harvard graduate, just a real power player, and she wanted to create a unity in that room. And we went through this exercise, this experience. It was more of an experience than an exercise. And we had grown men that were very seasoned, very accomplished, shed tears over this. The interesting thing is, when we take a chance to do this, what almost everybody finds out is that they were never on track at the time they became stuck. They had gotten off, sometimes just by a degree or 2. But we talked about that. If you're just a degree or 2 off track from destination, what does that do with your line?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. By the end of going back to my farming illustration, by the time you get to the half mile, you get to the other end, it's a drastic change. And it doesn't seem like it's much. I mean, it doesn't seem like when you first move a little bit off track, it's like, oh, that's not a big deal. But over the course of time, it becomes a drastic change.
And when you're busy going 120 miles an hour and you're just in life's busyness, God's given us these subtle reminders, you're off track, but we ignore them. And so this is why he allows us to get stuck.
So we end up with a crisis.
We end up with a crisis.
And I like that too. So because we've both been in situations where we end up in a crisis. And for me personally, I used to just really struggle with that. It's like, oh, I missed God. It's like, well, yeah, I did. I mean, in some sense, I really did. But I would beat myself up for it. I'm a perfectionist, and so I would beat myself up for it. And I recognized that those became gifts. Mm-hmm. Gifts from God to say, you know what, Scott, I know where you're going. It's not where you wanted to be. So let me put this in your path. Let me create a position or a place where you get stuck. So you're having to recalibrate. You're having to analyze again, like, where am I and what do I want to do? And so it became no longer a punishment, but it became a gift to say, okay, Lord, let me pause and let me figure out where you want to go. Because you mentioned something earlier, and I wrote this down. It's like, busyness doesn't equal success.
No.
But we've equated busyness. So I think for us as boomers, it's like, we're busy, so we must be successful. It's like, no, I can still be really busy and not be successful.
You know, when we're doing a turnaround, and we take this company that's been successful, and they've been doing things that have worked. Mm-hmm. And then the landscape changes, the terrain changes. It's mostly technology. There is a technology shift, and then there's a buyer journey shift. And what used to work stops working. But they've never,
like my iPhone 4 just stopped working, and I had to go to a new one.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and so what happens is these people in their busyness, they've kind of lost sight of this landscape shift, and God allows them to kind of go off the road. Right. And in a business, if you want to get a CEO's attention, mess with their revenue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
And they go back and they check and recheck, and they check and recheck, and they tell everybody, okay, let's, maybe we've gotten too soft, put the pedal to the metal, salespeople, make your calls, marketing, do this. And to no avail, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And as we move forward into this series, we'll expose the things that you have to. But we always start with LifePlan because we want to redefine definition. And there's, in some of our shorter programs, like our Coder Bootcamp, in the very beginning of our Coder Bootcamp, we have students make a list of the things that they want to change in their lives. There are some when we're taking somebody who doesn't have much of a background and we're making them a software developer, so, it's quite a test. They're going to hit walls along the way. And they are not, when they hit those walls, they're going to try to climb those walls and they're not going to make it over and over and over. And we have to get into their psyche, into their mindset that you're going to have to struggle through this, but you will be able to go over the wall. And in a Marine boot camp, the boot camp sergeant knows that. He's not in the least bit bothered by somebody's first 5 or 6 attempts and failure to get over the wall, because he's seen it 1,000 times and he knows that you're going to be able to do that. But one of the things that we do when somebody's hit the wall and they're about to quit, we've documented LifePlan at the beginning of this program. And they've documented, here's what I'd love to see my life, here's my destination, and here's the reasons, and I'm willing to pay the price. And I love it when they give us things about their kids. Well, I want to do this for my child, and I want to do this for my wife or my husband, and all these different things. At the point of quit, we talked about this today. We set up what's called an exit interview, and they're going to come to us to quit. Well, our team has gotten together, and we've met with the instructor, and we've met with the admissions person, and we've strategized, and we've taken their original document, and we've gone through it. And what we're going to do is ambush them.
Right.
And they come in for the exit. And usually it's myself or one of the other founders like you or somebody else sitting there. And we've got all these reasons why they did this. And I take this list, and they're sitting right here, and I put it right in front of them, and I say, I guess that was just a big old lie. When you said you'd pay the price and you're willing to struggle for your kids, that was just a lie, because you've hit your first wall, and because you can't make it over it 2 or 3 times, you're ready to surrender. Now, it's pretty easy to do with the person going through a coder boot camp. It's more difficult to do with a very seasoned CEO that's built the company because their egos are bigger. I mean, they've had more success.
Right.
But the reason we go through LifePlan is to have them diagram, this is what's important to me. This is the price that I'm willing to pay in terms of time, energy, focus, commitment, investment, what I'm willing to go through. We go through all of that in LifePlan. It's a time to reset. It's a difficult thing to do in the beginning, but it's such a freeing experience. And we start with this step. It's kind of like if you've counseled many of couples that have gone through marital problems.
Right.
And one of the things you do is you always start out with revisiting why they got married to start with.
Yeah, I always do that. I go back, let's go back to the beginning. What brought you together in the first place?
And instead of blaming how we got off track, you reset the destination of where you're trying to go and why.
Right.
And then we make a commitment that it's worth the time and energy and focus and money to make the correction. That's what we're trying to accomplish with LifePlan. It's an amazing experience. It will literally refuel your soul. And it's the first step. And I'll tell you, the CEOs and the entrepreneurs they want to skip this step.
Yeah, they do.
But it's important. It's why we go through it.
Let me throw one thing in for you, Gerald. I think it's very interesting. As I'm listening to you and talking, it's like, so they're going through and they've got dream and they're going into their destiny and they're thinking there's not going to be any problems or whatever the problems are, we'll be able to get through them. And so we can predict that they're going to hit these roadblocks, or we can predict they're going to hit these walls, but for them it's unpredictable. But it's kind of nice to have somebody that knows that it's predictable, that can walk you through what you think is unpredictable to get you through to the destiny that you have.
We are like a doctor who specializes in a certain area, and the patient comes in, and the doctor knows it's one of 3 problems.
Right.
Now, to fix it is a challenge.
Of course.
When somebody comes in with low revenue, I know where to go.
Right.
It's very predictable. The fix is challenging because you have a lot of personalities to deal with. You have different motivations. It's very rare that they come to you first. So sometimes they've waited for a desperate. What you said? We were talking about prayer, and people come in.
Yeah. When I ask people, they'll tell me about their situations and their problems, and I'll say, "You want me to pray for you?" I said, "Oh no, I'm not that bad yet." Why? And the problem that we run into is like we got people that's went through it's not that bad yet. Oh, it's not that bad yet, and now they're hitting crisis, and they come in.
And that's exactly what happens with the CEO when the CEO says, "Okay, I've been here before. That's why we have reserves for this moment, and so we're not worried about it. We're not going to panic. It's going to get better until it doesn't."
Yeah.
And
right.
slowly, and then suddenly they get into a position where they realize if they don't make a correction, they're going to do a lot of damage to everything that they've built. And I would say in almost every instance, the CEO waited way too long to come to us.
Right.
Way too long. And that's the challenge. With their pile of cash and it's been diminished the longer they wait. And with their diminished the morale of the people in the company, you know, the earlier they come, the better. But then you have to figure out, once you have LifePlan set, at least that's our guide, and in the next 7 podcasts that we're doing around the 8 stages, and this is all part of our revenue acceleration formula for the entrepreneurs. And we're going to get into these 7 stages, but we always start with LifePlan.
Right.
So stick with us. If you're watching this and you're in a position where your company's stuck, we're getting ready to expose some of the problems and show you how to get through them. So we'll see you next time. Scott and Gerald checking out.